Everyone. I am Julia Chansaren from Lucy, and I am here today to talk to Surabhi Agarwal, who is the VP of Product Development at Mastercard, to shed some light about her experience with women in the workforce and women returning to work and financial products for women. And we're going to talk about a lot of things today. So thank you so much for joining me, Surabhi. Cool. So, Surabhi, please tell us all, what do you do at Mastercard and what was your career progression before that?
Sure. I've been in corporate life for close to 2 decades now, across multiple markets and multiple financial services and consumer goods firms within Asia. Started my career back with Unilever in India, and then was with Citibank in India and Singapore, as well as Asia markets for the last 15 odd years. Joined Mastercard in the middle of the pandemic in late 2020. Currently, I am part of the global products and solutions team for Mastercard, and I'm based out of Singapore. We're looking to revolutionize the way we look at our commercial products. Difference from the consumer world to the commercial world is that the consumer world has been significantly digitized over the last decade in terms of consumer payments. However, the world of large business to business payment transactions continue to be extremely archaic and manual in nature.
Very
And
true.
we at Mastercard have drawn up a vision to actually digitize these payments. And I'm hoping that, 5 years from now, we would have created history. So we're in the process of creating history, hopefully.
That is amazing and very, very ambitious. I love it. So I also know that on the side, as if this changing the world job was not enough, I also know that on the side you're also part of the Women's Leaders Network inside Mastercard. So what happens
Yes,
there?
and I'm actually very proud of what we do at Mastercard largely. So we call it the Mastercard Way, which is be inclusive. And it's Mastercard's mission to ensure that all employees, men or women, reach their highest level of opportunity and growth. The Women's Leadership Network and Gender Diversity is one such foray and initiative. So the WLN, as we call it, is actually a global resource group. It has close to 40 chapters globally. In Asia, we have 13 chapters, and I lead the Singapore chapter for them. The way we do this is that our vision is to basically get men and women both who are passionate about gender diversity to facilitate and enable women to reach higher echelons of progress professionally, both within Mastercard as well as outside Mastercard. We basically work through two pillars. One is called professional development, where we run networking sessions, internal and external fireside chat with senior women leaders. We run sessions on personal development. For example, we have an upcoming self-defense workshop for our members. We also do stuff, for
Right.
example, on period positivity. This entire stigma around, and if I'm honestly on my menstrual cycle and I'm in pain, I'm uncomfortable speaking to my manager. How do we integrate that into HR policies? So we do a fair bit of work working with our internal HR as well as some industry leaders to help the professional and personal growth. The other pillar is on community and volunteerism. So Mastercard is big on how can you give back to society. And within that, we actually recently did a collaboration with Mums at Work. This is an organization based in Singapore, which actually helps women trying to return to work. They don't need to be mums. It's just called Mums at Work. And when we launched our first program with Mums at Work a couple of months back, it's a 3-month mentoring program with a cohort of about 25 women across age groups. So anywhere between 30 to 60, wanting to return to professional life. And we have 25 of our internal Mastercard colleagues who will be mentoring them over the course of the next 3 to 6 months with at least a mandatory monthly session for an hour each, where the mentor will help these women understand whatever challenges they may be facing, either as a new mother or as a person who has left work and wants to come back, or any other personal or professional advice they may seek to gather from the mentor. So that's some of a snippet of the work that we do as part of WLN. And one other thing that we did in community and volunteerism is that we actually participated in the cycle. So we did a fundraising campaign. We did a fundraising campaign in May where about 15 of our Mastercard colleagues woke up at 3 a.m. in the morning and went for a cycle ride as part of the IDA Cycling OCBC campaign. And we did fundraising. We also work with Aware, a very well-known entity within Singapore, holding workshops for our members on stuff like parenting. How do you actually manage gender diversity, gender advocacy, gender bias within parents to help their preteen and teenage kids? So there is a whole host of activity that we do internally and externally, working with many organizations and partners through WLM.
Okay, good. So it sounds like you're juggling a lot of things, and the key point is that this gives you a unique insight into what are the issues that women are facing right now. And I'm sure that it's not the same issues across the board. I'm sure that the issues are different based on the age, based on the country, based on the situation. But what are some issues that you have seen that you would have, let's say, that you have not expected to see?
It's a very interesting question, and I don't know whether I have the right answer for it. And I often ask some of these questions on a daily basis. But you made a very interesting point: is that while the situation may be the same, the exactness of the cultural fabric that exists, which is determined by geography, by economic factors, really impacts the way men and women deal with any of this. But I'll say, at a meta level, the insight to me is that the biggest challenge women face is on societal expectations. Even in this day and age, and I hate to say this, but in Asia, much more than Europe or the US, it is a woman's responsibility to pay attention to family, to be the homemaker. And that does put a fair amount of pressure on the woman, whether it's as a spouse or as a mom or as a daughter or a daughter-in-law. So you play multiple parts. But
Yes.
I think, and that societal expectation actually then branches out into many other associated challenges. So the fact that you will get judged if you make a choice and you put your career ahead of, because you will not be there for your kids. Well, many other moms have made the choice to stay at home. So you are constantly judged. You're constantly made to feel guilty. The lack of a support network, the balancing of your professional and personal life, it is a ripple of effect, and that can really bog down women and mothers. And I have seen that personally, as well as my experience of mentoring women over the last so many years, that this is a constant challenge that women continue to face. Is it getting better? Yes. Having more and more women in the workforce helps having that conversation and getting the dialogue out, but the challenges still exist. I cannot comment if the challenges were worse 40 years back. I would like to assume they were. So yes, we are making progress, but I think the speed of progress needs to be much faster than what we are seeing even today.
Yes, absolutely. And I think this is where some people, they say, "Oh, but I can't believe that in 2022 we still need to talk about these issues. We still need to talk about the pay gap." I mean, we have women that own billion-dollar businesses, women that are head of state. So why are we still talking about this? And I think technology is a great opportunity to change this, to keep changing this. But unfortunately, I don't think that we are really at 100% utilization of what we have. So in your opinion, and obviously this is personal, and it can change from every person, but in your opinion, what's something that companies are not really taking advantage of when it comes to helping more women return to the workforce?
So, Julia, my personal opinion is a little different. It takes two to clap. I always believe that. So, and this is my personal opinion. Life is about choices. It's always about choices. Some choices we make and some we allow others to impose on us. So that's the first point. The second point is that everything in life, including motherhood, needs to be looked at with a balanced eye. And before I get judged for saying this, I'm a mother of two. I have a 15-year-old and an 11-year-old. But I never left work. I took my maternity breaks and took them to the exact last day that was available to me in the firm. And I went back. So, yes, were there times when I felt judged, when I felt guilty? Oh, many. And they continue to be so. It's not like just because my kids have grown older that I don't have those days and evenings where I'm absolutely feeling like a guilty mom and completely down and out. So, but like I said, it's a choice that men don't have that choice. Or, again, society judges them on the other side when men make that choice of saying, I want to be a stay-at-home dad. But society expects moms to stay at home. And a lot of women make that choice because of their own reasons. So companies will come forward, but women have to take that step on saying, it cannot be a victim of circumstance only. It has to be a balanced act. I'm willing to work. I'm willing to make that choice. And I'm willing to stretch that extra mile. So there are just three things that I think worked for me. And again, this is not gospel truth. This is my experience having been a mom for 15 years now. And the first one is that if you choose to be a mom, have at least 2 kids. Sibling rivalry and sibling love is the best thing you can give your kids. It's tough in the first 3 years, but after that, they're there for each other. And I swear by this advice. So I have really, and I've seen cousins around me, friends around me who have a lone ranger. It's much, much harder. The second one would be focus on quality versus quantity of time. And if that requires to make changes to schedules, do that. And I'll tell you my personal example. Since the time my daughter was 6 months old and I went back to work, I changed her sleeping schedule so that she slept at 9 p.m. Was I judged? Of course I was. So many moms in the postnatal groups where you would go for the early toddler programs would be aghast at the fact that my baby was up at 9 p.m. The reason was I would come home only for 6. So either it could be that she would never see me except in the morning or for 45 minutes in the evening, or the nanny would make her ensure that she had a good nap in the day and she slept later in the evening. So yes, I was definitely judged for it, but I stuck to my guns because that was the only way I could build a relationship with my daughter and my son thereafter. Right? And the third one will be depend on your family and your support group, your spouse, your friends, your extended family. Don't bring it all on yourself. You cannot do it all. And don't expect others to do it the way you want it to be done. Trust them. And I often think that we as women don't trust when we give responsibility to our extended network because we have a certain expectation of perfectionism. That does not help the cause because you're putting undue pressure on yourself as well as others. So lean in your support group, lean on your spouse, and let them figure it out. It cannot be done your way. As long as it's done and the baby or the child is taken care of, bask in that glory. And when these choices, so these are very women-specific choices that need to be made, we will suddenly see a larger cohort of women wanting to come back to work. It still doesn't answer your question on the social and the cultural fabric. And I come from India, where if you look at it, the help or the infrastructure that's available for young mothers is probably better than most because people live in extended families. There is a lot of helper situation available. But what's missing is the fact that the social fabric expects women to stay at home. Therefore moms end up making that choice of quitting the workforce and staying at home. So companies can do whatever they want to do. But if the funnel itself drops down, then they can keep expanding programs, but we're not solving for the problem. So I think the onus is more on us as women if we want the corporate world to actually help us and assist us and walk with us along the way.
That is very good advice, very good parenting advice too. So thank you for sharing. And I think the data that we have available to us clearly says how, especially in poorer countries, so not Singapore, but especially in, countries such as Myanmar and Laos and Cambodia and Indonesia, the majority of small business owners are actually women who manage the money, they manage the family, they manage the kids. And yet, the disconnect is that even though they are the business owners and the breadwinners and the family managers, they are not in charge of the money. Or if they are, it's all cash based, which means because it's all cash based, they can't get a loan out of it, or it's not so easy to borrow money at a good interest rate. And so there's this whole problem where the data is really clear in the sense that the data says that women are very good at multitasking and very good at running businesses or being smart businesswomen. But unfortunately, it's either the social strata as well as the institutions that are not 100% made to help women do that. So, what do you think? How do you think we start this change? Is it from then the women themselves? Because one would argue that women want that change and they are living proof that that change is possible. But then if there is the so-called glass ceiling, then it becomes very hard to break through to that. So what's your opinion on this?
That's a very interesting question, Julia. And I think the answer in one brief sentence, and we can elaborate on that, is that this particular one is where the society and the institutional and the financial industry needs to step up to women entrepreneurs. Because you absolutely nailed it. I mean, having been in Southeast Asia now for the last many years, you look at Thailand, look at Philippines, look at all the foreign domestic workers that work in Singapore. These are the primary bread earners for their family. Yet,
Extended
the level
families,
of
yes.
financial digital literacy that they have is abysmal. It's close to zero. They are the primary bread earners. But do they get the kind of respect that they should be getting for their male counterparts? I mean, a perfect example is there are so many men who work outside of their home country, and they are always held in great regard for working overseas to fend for their families. However, when you speak to most of these domestic helpers, you realize that they are at the receiving end from their family because they are often judged for not being there for their kids, even though they are the primary earning members. So you're absolutely right that if for female entrepreneurs they're struggling, and there has to be much more institutional support on inclusion that needs to be done from women entrepreneurs. So in fact, this is not part of my own business group, but at Mastercard we have a center for inclusive growth that basically focuses on financial inclusion globally. And as part of a larger objective of getting 1 billion people and 50 million micro and small business enterprises into the digital economy by 2025, Mastercard actually earlier this year has pledged support to 25 million women entrepreneurs.
Wow.
And the intent is actually what you were saying. It's about providing them with that support, providing them with capital and the guidance on how can they actually grow their businesses. Because they struggle at many levels. Forget the social fabric. They do not have a support group to go and speak and say, okay, I want to raise funds. I want to grow. I want to strategize. So at every step of the way, they need to be handheld and to create examples of them. So I'm also very keenly following what we at Mastercard are going to do over the next 3 years to actually enable these 25 million women entrepreneurs, because that can then become a great success story to actually incentivize and motivate women entrepreneurs across the world to take a dip in what right now seems to be a more sob story.
Yes, absolutely. And the last one, I read an article recently that talked about the situation of banking in Southeast Asia, how many people have a bank account. access to technology, access to banking, access to financial services. And if I remember that correctly, the figure stands at 88 million women in Southeast Asia who do not have a bank account. That's
And is that do you have a comparative for men? It's compared because yes, there has been Google studies which talk about the fact that about 400 odd million people, both men and women, that need access to the digital economy and who are currently largely operating on the cash economy. So I'll be curious to understand how does these numbers talk to each other, because technically speaking, they should be half of the entire population.
Yes, I will look it up and check the details, but roughly what I remember is that the percentage of women without a bank account was a few percentage points higher than the men who didn't have a bank account, because usually the men in the family would have a bank account and then the women would just live on the cash economy. So, but let me check on those figures and also reference the article in the link in the description or in the comments so that everyone can also read it, because it is an interesting figure, especially considering how many people in Southeast Asia have a smartphone, which is everyone. I mean, everyone has a smartphone these days. So you think, okay, you have a smartphone, you have access to Wi-Fi. Why don't you have a bank account? Why don't you have a mobile wallet? Why are you not learning about all these things? And this is not, I don't want to sound like I am blaming people because they don't know, because it's not their fault. This is just not something that is hugely advertised, or it's not advertised in the right way to reach everyone. I mean, I'm thinking about Indonesia, where I had the pleasure of spending a couple of months living last year, and the millions of islands that they have and the millions of people that live so far away from a hospital or from an airport that it becomes very, very hard to reach. And I think the vaccine distribution proved that, how remote some countries are. And so if they were barely able to deliver vaccines and medication, what about digital banking? Digital banking is clearly not as big as a priority as health. So I understand that, but it does put things in perspective. I mean, I think in Singapore, we are lucky that smartphone penetration is almost at 100%, and even credit card penetration is, I think it's in the high 90%, right?
Yes.
So it's something that we can't imagine by seeing life in Singapore. And especially for me, I remember coming from Europe, seeing a 75-year-old auntie just paying at the supermarket an $8 bill with her credit card. To me, that was a shock. I'll always remember how shocked I was, because coming from Europe, if it's less than 50 euros, you're just paying cash. It's not even a discussion. So anyway, I'm digressing about the cash economy and the credit card economy. But going back to the Moms at Work project, what is something that business owners can do to hire more moms?
I think from a manager or a department perspective, it's about one identifying what is the skill set that is missing. We all know that women are more mature, they are more collaborative, they have higher social quotient, they have higher empathy, and they are better leaders, right? More often than not, when we're looking to hire back moms returning with their hiatus, the challenge that we've seen in the team is that the remaining team needs to understand and get the context. They need to be able to appreciate why she is different from the rest. And there has to be that level of comfort and understanding between the manager, the new person coming in, as well as the extended team to enable her success. And that requires probably a more on ground HR kind of an intervention, because it's not easy. It's not easy on anybody. So even if the manager may be comfortable because he or she knows the person from prior experience and is fully confident of her capabilities, the circumstances have changed. the team that has been working and she's a stranger to them may be very uncomfortable. So just an informal dialogue and introduction doesn't solve the problem. And we may be actually trying to avoid difficult conversations. And therefore, I think an HR knowledge session or a training session on empathy for some of these women returning to work is a crucial thing to do. The second one is also about setting expectations very clearly. Suppose a woman is coming back after a decade. A lot has changed in the decade, especially in the payments and the financial services industry. Mm-hmm. It's chalk and cheese. I mean, wallets didn't exist. We were not paying by Apple Pay. Very simple things, right? So the world is moving faster in payments than we can imagine. I mean, we're not talking paying by crypto. Leave aside the last massacre on Wall Street. But so if we really want women to succeed, again, they may need to do some upskilling, which needs to be enabled for them. A clear expectation and timeline setting on a project basis to say, okay, this is what we would like you to deliver, and these are your timelines, and this is the support group that can actually help you deliver. I think those could be baby steps to begin, and then of course, one should really have check-ins on this at least monthly, if not quarterly, because we have the collective responsibility to make these women succeed. It's not only important for the individual in question, it's important for the department, for the organization, and for the industry at large.
And if I can add, it's actually important for the community, because we know that women spend the majority of their income on their families. And so that means that when women work, their children usually can have a better education, a more comfortable life.
A whole lot
so
is
in
that
the
helping
end,
women
helps everyone.
repeat a whole lot is
we
that
always
helping
say
women helps
Yes.
everyone.
Fabulous one, and I love it. You are absolutely right. They contribute to the community in more ways than one. Absolutely agree. Yeah.
And the last way that contributes to everything is also by them being a role model for their own children, because
Yes.
now more and more children will grow up seeing their mothers having a fulfilling career outside of the house and be mothers at the same time. And hopefully in a generation, we will not need to have gender equality committees anymore, because it's just going to be second nature to the newer generations. Hopefully, right? That's the goal. That's what we want to see. Awesome. Well, Surabhi, thank you so much for your time today. It was really insightful to share with you. Thank you for all the parenting tips and all the insights into your world. We definitely look forward to hearing more from you and your colleagues at Mastercard. I know we have another interview being released soon with Nikki Guo. And so thank you. Have a nice rest of your day. And I'll be posting the links in the comments to that data about the
Okay, thank you, Julia.
banking
it was an
penetration
absolute pleasure
in Southeast
meeting
Asia,
you,
so we can check on
getting
that.
to know you today. Let me know if there's anything else that we can help you with. All the best for all your next sessions.